I have Jason joining me on this episode to talk a little bit about selling art as NFTs. So the whole space of selling and marketing NFTs, art pieces on the internet is a little bit hard for a lot of people, especially if you're a new and upcoming artist and you're thinking, oh, I'll give this a go. And you may be overwhelmed with everything that you need to do, but I have Jason here joining me to talk all about that process, the art of selling art. Jason, welcome back to the podcast.
Thanks for having me back. I'm glad I didn't scare you off after the first run.
No, not at all. And it was awesome meeting you at Rare Bloom and CNFT Con, as well as Ali as well, who features in a lot of your photography art pieces. So it's been awesome to hang out and actually meet you in person too.
Great. Yeah, for sure. It's everything. I mean, I've met more people through Web3. And I mean, this is good for anyone who's thinking about coming into NFTs. Like, I've met more people through Web3 and NFTs than I have in my entire life.
Really?
Made more friends. So, and that's like, I just wrote up like a sum of 2022 blog post, and I was like, I have more friends from Web3 than I have in any part of my life before. So
wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
And plus now you're actually meeting people in person at some of these events, especially around the Cardano community, and traveling around the world and meeting them in person. So that that's an extra bonus where you can actually engage with people face to face after talking with everyone online for such a long time. But let's go through some of your highlights and what you actually do in the Cardano ecosystem at the moment. So you've for those that do know you, that you're always around on Twitter and on all various Twitter spaces. But can you just give everyone a little introduction of who you are, how you're involved in the Cardano ecosystem, and what your artistic background is in terms of what you do and create?
Okay, so my name's Jason Matias. I've been a career artist since 2012, selling art full-time since 2014. So I started out in the traditional world doing really big wall art pieces with my photography and selling those to collectors all over the world. Like, I have collectors in 6 countries now, not including wherever these NFT people are, because I don't even know. You don't even get to know in NFTs, but I've shipped art all over the world. And before that, I was in the military. And since getting in 2018, I gave a TED Talk on my work, which is like a really great way to get to know me in 10 minutes if you're not, already going to spend 10 minutes with us right here. And I started in NFTs, in 2021 in February. And I really dove into Cardano once I realized that it could be a place for me to have NFTs, as in like June of that time. So I had started buying crypto. I'm getting all my terms confused. I started investing in crypto in 2017, 2018. And Cardano was one of the projects I went all in on, or heavily in on. And I didn't turn out so well through the first bear market, but I paid my market dues.
That happens.
And then when I found out we could do NFTs, I wanted to be on Cardano as well.
So what made you decide, because you said in February 2021 you were getting into the NFT scene. So back then, I think Beeple launched his, what was it? That huge piece that sold for 69 million.
Artworks, yeah.
Yeah, 5,000 days or whatever it was called.
Right.
Now, so that was on Ethereum, but what made you choose Cardano over that? Or are you using both chains to mint and sell NFTs?
I'm on both chains, but I'm most successful on Cardano. And when I got started, it was like this huge rush of attention and energy, and it kind of put a big wedge into my relationship. So I had to take a break. And during that break between like my first push in NFTs on Ethereum and coming back into NFTs, I had become really disconnected with the Ethereum community, and photography wasn't even something that was being collected very, very much on any of the blockchains. So it gave me a lot of breathing room to go look in other places. And I just started thinking, it's like, I have a bag in Cardano. I want to build a bigger bag in Cardano. And I started investigating that. So then when I started looking at the Cardano ecosystem and started talking to people and trying to figure out how to do this thing, because there was like zero information on how to mint on Cardano, I found a community. And it's almost like a little cliche thing to say. It's like, oh, I found friends. But I did. And I found people who supported us and actual conversations that weren't so facility. Like it was just like people on Ethereum at the time, and still very much so, is all about, hi, you're great. Now look at my work. You're right. And there was more conversation, more education happening on Cardano side, and that vibe was something I really, really liked. So I ended up being much heavier in Cardano than I am on Ethereum.
Right. It's interesting to hear those kind of backstories of why certain people choose certain chains and where they end up minting their collections, whereas a lot of people are still adamant to use Ethereum or even new ones that are coming out. So it's really interesting to hear those perspectives.
Yeah, I'm not a maxi in any way. So I'm on Ethereum, I'm on Stacks, I'm going to be on AVAX this year. But still, like what I found was I came to NFTs with a traditional background and a 10-year portfolio and a history and a resume and all that. And when I got to blockchain, I found that my stuff, the old stuff, didn't really sell that well. And I'm very business minded, right? Like I run the Art of Selling Art. So I'm very business minded. And what I noticed in NFTs is that it gave me the opportunity to do stuff I couldn't do before. Like I couldn't do a photograph series of an angel, right? Like the Guardians collection that Ali and I have, that took hundreds of hours. I could never have focused that much time into working on that before because I had to put food on the table, which meant I had to keep doing landscapes, keep marketing landscapes, keep going to art shows, keep doing social media marketing, all of that stuff. And there was just no time for me to do this other thing. So when NFT started and then I found my tribe on Cardano, I was like, well, I can do this experimental stuff is what I'm calling it. It's just me experimenting with my creativity, put it on Cardano and people loved it. So it's kept me here for sure.
Now, you've had some really good successes in the Cardano ecosystem. So in terms of sales and I think top ranking sales, you mentioned that you've got the highest selling valued photography NFT piece. Is that correct?
I do. So I have the highest selling NFT photography collection on Cardano. It's the Normandy Collection. And what's interesting is one of the things I've been working for is bringing the traditional and the NFT world together, the trad art and the NFT space together. And so that collection was actually a physical commission that was put on blockchain for the history. So I flew to Paris. We were just talking about traveling. I was in France. I did a commission in Normandy for a historian, a war historian, who's a collector of my work, who wanted me to create a photograph of a graveyard that was in my style, but also showed the weight of the sacrifice of the people who stormed that beach. And I was really worried at first that I couldn't do it, but we went and he loved the work. So we put that on blockchain, and the 4 pieces together plus the 4 certificates of authenticity for the physical pieces are all minted. And that was a total of 90,000 ADA. So yeah, I'm super happy with that. And I brought a big real collector into the NFT space, and that's right now is number 1 for however long that lasts.
That is absolutely amazing. Hopefully you can keep that number 1 position for quite a while. And I did have a look at the Normandy collection, and I think you did hit the brief, definitely in terms of trying to do what the client wanted there. So I absolutely love it. I'll put links to it down below so anyone else can check that out as well.
Thanks, man.
Now, you run the Art of Selling Art. And for anyone that is coming into this space, this is an online course that anyone can jump in on, sign up for, and learn about the space. Now, can you tell us what is in it? I'm making a couple of assumptions here, but can you give us an overview of what someone would expect to see once they've signed up and gone through the course? So Art of Selling Art, I started in 2018. And it started because I would always have conversations about business with artists. And then one of those artists ended up being someone who wrote an article who brought in this flood of questions, and I couldn't handle them all. So I turned it into
beta course, which turned into the real thing. And what's in it is basically a case study on my business. Right. So everything I've done for the last 10 years, I've broken down and turned into course material that other artists can just take and replicate and turn it into and apply it to their own art business. And that's been true for the traditional side. And, we started in NFTs in early 2021, and I didn't want to jump in and just create an NFT course before I really had, one, credentials, two, like some real experience on multiple chains. So I waited about a year before I launched the NFTs for artists section. So TASA, the full thing, has everything that's in the NFT section and more. But what's in the NFT section is basically what is blockchain, disseminated for an artist, right? It's disseminated so that an artist can understand it. I'm not going to go into the technicals. When I break it down, it's going to make sense to an artist, right?
Smart.
And then it goes all the way through to selling strategies and pricing your art strategies. I compare the blockchain. So one of the modules has like, what is it like to be an artist on Ethereum? What is it like to be an artist on Cardano, on Stacks, on Tezos, and the different ways that I see it. Right. So, I sold out the what is that collection called? I sold out one of these collections that I did called Natural Forces. And then I turned that into a case study about what I did every step of the way. Like while I was making it, what did I do to market it? While I was pre-launch, how did I sell out like 80% before it even went live? And then what did I do to get the other 20% out? And what did I do to get the second edition of everything sold out in 5 days? So take that and you turn it into a case study. And that's what's all in there. Plus there's the Discord community that's specifically that is gated for only people who are members. And then there's the online community for the total art of selling art members. There's like 17 modules and like 20 hours of content, video content, plus lives and all that.
Wow, that is definitely a lot of material there for anyone to go through and learn all the basics. And I love the approach there where you're not going too deep and too technical into the technology itself and just explaining what you need to so that the artist can just get up and running and pick and choose what chain they may want to start minting on, or even all of them, and then start selling their art.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I'm really heavy on Cardano. So, obviously a lot of what we talk about is Cardano related, especially in our live discussions. And I don't want to say I ignore the technology. It's just that I make it so that it's spoken and written in terms the artist can understand. And I think that, when artists jump into Twitter spaces, especially on Cardano, they're very technical and very education focused and they're just not on the art side focused that much. And that's great because Cardano is a technology for the future, and NFTs are going to involve much more than just art. But the spear of the sword here, the tip of the spear is that NFTs are art right now. And this is an amazing opportunity for artists to create and be a part of a market that's evolving and growing as we are creating. So yeah, I mean, it's full. I don't know if we can do a screen share, or if you can show some screenshots of what's in there, but I spend a lot of time talking to artists every day, trying to help them get their shit organized so they can play in the NFT world. I'm also really just straightforward, I've been holding my tongue this whole time, but basically that's how I am. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I will slice in some of the screenshots and video overlays, etc., through this interview so people can actually see what's in the course as well. But let's get into some specific infos and tips for any artists. So maybe some of this is in the course. Could you give us 3 of your top tips or something that's really useful for any NFT artist that is starting out in the ecosystem?
So I do a lot of podcasts, and my one tip that I always want to give, and I'm going to give this one first because then they have to listen to it to get to the other 2, right. Is this idea about learning to love the work. And I think this is where people in general fail. You start with an idea and you're like, I'm going to create this podcast for Cardano community and create this whole thing, and people are going to come and talk to me and share, and we're all going to grow together. And it's a great idea. But then there's like the scheduling and the editing and the marketing and the showing up to tell people that this thing even exists, and all of this stuff that isn't included in the final vision. And all of those things, here's the idea, the inspiration, and here's the finished product, and this whole valley in between is just not spoken about. And it's the same in art business, right? Like for me to do the Guardian collection, it's photographs from 4 different countries, and then photo shoots in a studio, and then over 100 hours of editing. Each one is more than 10 hours of editing, and there's 10 angels. And then I'm done, right? But it doesn't sell itself out. And then I got to go, talk to everybody and talk about it over and over, and find people to talk about it for me, and market and ads and whatnot. So like, learn to love the work. Because if you can't learn to love the process of getting onto a podcast with this cool dude you met in Vegas to talk about your stuff, then you're not going to be able to realize the actual thing. So find ways to reward yourself for the work. And there's a bunch of ways to do it. I know this is isn't concrete, like this is making me money tomorrow, but it's a mindset that makes you money, right? Mindset over money. Mindset comes before money. So that's my number one. I don't know. What do you think about that?
I think it's so true. It is so true. Like just when you're mentioning the podcast side of things here, I'm recording this episode, but there is so much to getting this episode out and in front of people afterwards. Yeah. And once it's published and live, there's a whole process after it again. So if anyone is thinking about starting a podcast, it's not just jumping online and just recording a conversation. There is so much to it. And in anything, not just art, it's in any business, there is so much more than just producing a product and getting it out there. It's a lot of work. So totally agree with that first point there.
Yeah. All right. So don't ignore that, right? And don't let yourself get daunted by, I'm done, but I haven't made money yet. Like there's a whole, being done is not even part of the sales process. But two is this is something I've been confronting Cardano for a long time, since the beginning. I mean, trying to bring fine art and fine art prices to Cardano has been a uphill battle, like an uphill battle on a slippery, muddy slope. And what I've been doing, I realized maybe like a month or two ago, is I've been trying to force a market where a market doesn't exist, right? There is a market on Cardano. I'm not saying there's not. $161 million was $161 million in NFTs was sold in 2022 by only 2,500 people. 2,500 sellers sold $161 million of NFTs last year.
Wow.
Right?
Okay.
And, I mean, that's a lot of money. And when you divide that between 2,500 people, that's $65,000 a person. Okay. So like, that's the type of money that can be shared here. And the market is just starting for Cardano. Like we are just hitting DeFi. We are just hitting real liquidity flowing in. So there's a lot to be earned here. Put another way, there's a lot of potential customers who might love your work here. But price is marketing, and knowing who you're pricing for is going to help you understand how and who to talk to them, who and how to talk to them. So like I've been trying to push these bigger sales, like a Memory of Light from that collection sold for 55,000 ADA, okay, which today is 15 grand, or a few weeks ago it was 15 grand. Now it's like 20 something. That type of person came from the outside, right? So I was marketing a different thing to them. Like, so the stuff I create mostly on Cardano is catered towards the current Cardano audience. And you have to understand who you're selling to in order to understand how to price your work and how to have expectations. So my higher price stuff, that's going to move slower on Cardano. It's going to move slower on the other chains too, but you have to understand, like, if I do the Guardians and I price them at 500 ADA, who am I going to talk to, and how many people can I reach, and how many people can fill that demand, versus the other collection I mentioned was 100 ADA each, and that sold like this, and it created a whole nother market for me, a whole nother tier of the market. And so understanding who you're marketing to and how they want to be spoken to is like, and this isn't even just an NFT advice, right? This is just sales advice. But the thing about the NFT market is you have more direct connection with collectors than anywhere else, right? I can run Facebook ads and have a few, conversations through comments on my social media on Facebook and Twitter, Facebook and Instagram, but I can talk to a dozen collectors in a day, on Twitter. And so it's a whole different access to the people who are buying your work. And it's really, really amazing. But you also have to come in and understand who those people are and where they're coming from and why they're buying art. And then I have one more, and this is my pet peeve. You ready?
All right. Yep. Go for it.
I think that the bigger Cardano gets, the more this problem is going to start rising for the artists. And this is that you do not work for your collectors. Okay?
Okay.
I see this so much on Ethereum because these collectors they're first of all, they're brand new to buying art in general, but they have a lot of ETH and they buy art, right? And then the artist is like, they go from this idea of selling one-of-ones, which, by the way, is a non-fungible way of funding. It's not tangible. You cannot sell one-of-ones as an artist for low prices and expect to have a career. There's just not enough money in it, right? Unless you're selling your work for $10,000 a piece, then you can sell 10 pieces a year, $100,000 a year. After taxes and bills and running a business fees, you make $60,000 US, and that's a meager income. At least here, where I live, you can't even live on that amount of money. But so you have your audience. They have these one-of-one careers, and they're selling the work, but then they run out of work. They can't keep producing work at a high enough quality to call it a one-of-one and to sell it for enough to make money. But they're collectors. Here's the thing. So the collectors are saying, no, I don't want you to make collection. I don't want you to do an edition because that would reduce the value of the work that I collected. Because they're looking at artists as if they are investment vehicles. And you can't ignore the fact that NFTs are the intersection between finance, technology, and art. So you can't ignore the finance or the technology part. They're intrinsically part of this business. But as an artist doing art for art, that you can't let the financial part of it, you can't let other people's financial motivations change the way you create art and the way you edition art. So like, I've just seen this conversation. I've completely ignored this. Nobody's telling me what to. I've been doing art for longer than most of these people I've even been in money or art. But I see it a lot. And a collector will say, I bought these one-of-ones from you because your career is going this direction. And because I bought them, your career is going even faster in that direction. And if you do this thing in the future, if you do this edition or if you sell this thing at a lower price, then it's going to undermine the value of the thing I bought and I won't be able to sell it for as much. So they try to tell the artist what to do, right? I guess I'm going the long way around this, but collectors will try to tell you what to do with your art business because they think they know better and they think that they can secure their own investment by controlling the way you work. And that's you do not work for your collectors.
Very interesting tip there. I had absolutely no idea that was an issue in the art space. Not so much an issue, but like some of the motivation of the collectors. But I do see one thing all the time, especially with fine art and one-on-one artists. You see in their Twitter comments, people chime in saying, "So what's the utility of this?" That's one thing that really annoys me. It's just a beautiful art piece. It doesn't need utility. It's the art is the utility.
True, but like I said, you can't ignore the fact that this is finance, tech, and art. So like, while I 100% agree with you, like this piece of art that I bought behind me, its utility is that for the next generation or two, I'm going to enjoy the hell out of it, right? But in the digital space, there really does have to be a utility at some point, because you can't ignore the fact that of this technology finance intersection. But first and foremost, your utility is the art, right? And what I always, the reframe I always have is just that when I sell a piece of art, I'm not selling the time, money, and effort I put into making it. I am selling the future use of it. So in the real world, that's just inspiration, entertainment, and enjoyment for generations or however long my art lasts. And how much is that worth? Like, how much would you pay to walk into your living room every day and feel proud and inspired and uplifted by a single thing on your wall for 20 years? Like, that's worth more than $10, right? That's worth more than $100 or even $1,000. So, I mean, that always and still applies to the NFT space, but there are a lot of ways to come up with utility. And like one of the modules in Art of Selling Art is utility in art. And like, how many ways can you come up with ways to create value for your collectors? And a lot of it is community-based, but you can't ignore that part. There has to be something. And one of the things that I think is going to be the future, if I have my way, is that the NFT and the physical will be paired. So so right now, if a collector buys a physical piece from me, they're going to get the NFT with it. So they get the proof of ownership on blockchain, and it's connected to a pretty piece of pixels, a pretty pile of pixels in one, right? So that the NFT, in my case, very often is the utility of the physical. Right? And that can go both ways. So you can do an NFT and then they can burn it for a physical, or you could pair it with the physical if it's priced in, right? You have to price it into if I sell an NFT for $5,000 US, whatever that translates to when you're watching this in ADA, and then I give them a physical for free, then I basically just gave them a physical with it, then I basically just gave this physical away for free, which takes money out of my pocket and takes money out of my earnings. Yep. So like, you have to price it in. And I see a lot of artists just giving away physicals, not understanding that they have value of their own. They're separate assets. I'm completely rambling. But so NFTs and utility, you have to see how you can make it work for the art, for the collector, and for yourself.
Really, really interesting perspectives there. And thank you so much for sharing those tips as well. I think anyone that is watching this or listening to it will get a lot of value out of that. So Jason, where can people find out more information about this course? Where can they find out more information about you and connect and engage with you in general?
So I'm real Jason Matias on all social medias. The Art of Selling Art has its own Instagram. It's just The Art of Selling Art. And I'm sure you'll put a link for it, but The Art of Selling Art has its own website, theartofselling.art. And there you can find links to a free Discord. There's free Facebook groups too, but honestly, I don't really pay much attention to them. I have too much work to do helping actual artists or actual members than the Facebook groups. But yeah, you can join The Art of Selling Art, and then you'll have access to me and the whole community of working artists, and hang out on social media with me.
Absolutely brilliant. And maybe even meet you at some point in time in the future at some Cardano-related events and conferences. Yeah,
I'll be showing work at Rare Bloom 2023. I haven't decided if I'm going to actually bring an art show to CNFTCon, but I might. And then, maybe I'll do Switzerland again, wherever the next summit is.
Yeah, I don't think Switzerland. It was a little bit hard to get to for a lot of people, but it will be somewhere in Europe for sure.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome, Jason. Thank you for joining me on this episode and sharing all your knowledge and everything else around the art of selling art. And I'm sure we'll catch up again soon.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, gotta do it like that. You've been listening to the Learn Cardano podcast. Gotta get it hype. Crypto is what we like, but this is not investment or financial advice. Gotta do your research, cause it's risky. We know it is. This show is educational and it's informative. Crypto's the future, really, it ain't no debate.